Hey folks, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today I've got two fixed blades to show you. They're basically siblings of one another, and that's why I'm doing them together. Both by CIMA. We've got this guy, he's a dagger. And we've got this guy, it's just a straight back knife. They have a sibling, so three of them together. It's more of a Bowie style. So they're basically the same length. They are all steel AUS-8 knives. And they are thick, chunky monkeys. Big guys. So since they're so very similar in so many ways, I'm going to review these two guys together. And I'm sure the third one will have a lot of similarities, except the styling is actually probably more appealing to me than these two. I just couldn't get that third one. And these are the ones that GearBest sent to me to review. Thank you very much, GearBest. And I'm going to do my best to do an objective review. And you might be surprised what you hear. So stick around for this review. So these are the knives by CIMA. The only writing on the knives are right here by the handle scales, right at the ricasso. There's CIMA and AUS-8. Get that light just right. And that's the same on both of them. AUS-8 right there and CIMA right there. These are chunky knives. Take a look at this guy. This is the G892. 8 millimeters thick all the way down until the last inch where it comes down to the tip. If you want to do a tip test and have a knife pass, do your tip test on this guy. It will just destroy any wood you stick it in if you've got the power to pull it through. There you go. You got a winner right here. This dagger is going to pass your tip test as well. It's a very strong tip test. This knife would actually make a great throwing knife, especially for people who are learning. When you're learning, you want something heavier. And this is a nice heavy knife, and that'll stick into just about anything if that end is what comes first. So let's talk about the details here. AUS-8, Rockwell hardness of about 57. They are all the same, this stonewash on the blade, and then they've got different styles of finishes on the handle. This is sort of a random kind of milled out pattern on both sides. And on the back, there's on the spine and on the belly of the handle, there's some jimping. It's a little bit offset off the center. There's a hole here to put a lanyard on. So it clearly is made to hold this way because that's the sharp edge there. So it's not just centered back here. So you've got a few things going for you. On this knife, you've got a nice persuader back here because it comes to something of a point. One thing you don't have is any protection for your hand. If you do a stabbing motion and it stops, for your hand to slide over that way, there's nothing to stop it except for you've got this jimping that goes all the way around the handle. So those 5 stripes that are cut out of there, and then the one extra one on the top for your thumb. You get a pretty good purchase with this thing in your hand. This one here's got jimping all the way down the handle, and then this ball here for the for your finger to get through if you want to, or if your pinky finger can fit through there to hold it, if you want to hold it that way. It's not a very secure hold that way, though. I find you have to, if you're going to put your finger through it, the only other way to put it is like that. And I don't really like putting my finger through this one. It's just a little too small. It's a little too dangerous, because if it bends, you're asking to break your finger, if that comes off that way. So, a larger hole like on a karambit has much more room to, turn and stuff if that happens. Well, on most karambits, I should say. And then, your hand fits in here. I've got large size hands bordering on extra large. And that's probably the limit for these knives for hand size because it just fits in there, just barely. You've got sharpener's choil on both sides of the dagger and on this knife too. And if you look at the pictures of the Bowie style knife, it's got a sharpener's choil there too. The thickness of the knife stays at about 8 millimeters all the way down till right near the end where it comes down thinner, just like this one right near the end where it finally comes down thinner. Let's give you some more of the dimensions. So the dagger, cutting edge of 8.9 centimeters, 5.86 inches. The blade thickness, and this is the same for both of these knives, 8 millimeters, that's 0.3125 inches. Handle thickness is the same. The thickness behind the grind on the dagger is 2 millimeters. So you see that final grind right there, and then where the full flat grind starts. Well, it's not really full flat because goes only halfway. So where the flat grind starts, that's 2 millimeters thick right there. 2 millimeters thick is 0.0785 inches. The handle length on this one is 9.7 centimeters, 3.8 inches, and of course that's the handle grip length as well. The total length of this knife and the total length of this knife for both of them is 20.3 centimeters. So the only differences on this straight back knife is the cutting edge is 9.3 centimeters, which is 3.6 inches. The thickness behind the grind on this one is 1.5 millimeters, which is 0.059 inches. And the handle length on this one is a little bit longer, 10.1 centimeters, 4 inches. So the other dimensions are shared with both of these. And I believe it's probably shared with the third one as well. The third one is model G888, and that's sort of the Bowie style model. We've got what they call a K sheath, which is their version of Kydex. And then they've put on this some sort of like a tech lock for you on your belt. And it's very functional. You've got a bar in here, and you push to release it. You push that button that's on the bottom, and it holds quite securely. And you can put an 1.5 inch belt in there. So you've got a big opening here. And if you want a larger belt that this works with, you just take one of these off. You just change them to wherever you want for whatever thickness of belt you have. So you can have, this full thickness. I'll put the measurement of that on the screen from this size or smaller so that you can have it kind of snug so it doesn't sort of pivot on your belt. You can imagine I've got a belt on here, and so what I mean is if you make that the right size, it's not going to do this on your belt. It's going to stay vertical instead of, moving back and forth. So you can use just one of these if you want to change the size. Just put it wherever you need it. And then your belt would sit in here, so one or two, whatever works for you. That's actually a good idea. The retention. The retention for the straight back one is fairly good. It takes a bit to pull it out. As long as your knife stays in, the proper orientation on your belt with gravity helping it out, it's not going to come loose very easily. And the other one, we have a problem on the dagger, and that's because the Kydex has come apart. And so there's absolutely no retention left on this. It's just, there's nothing there. If the Kydex stays together, and so what they needed to have done is not ground this out. They should have just let it come straight up and then put another rivet right there and another rivet right there. That would hold this together, and then it would have great retention because it would be holding in one of these holes right here and not just on this little notch here. And that would give it really good retention. It'd be better than this knife, in fact. And since this is not really a user, it's really a collector knife. How many collectors are really going to want to put duct tape on their sheath? So if you want to turn this $30 knife into a user, go ahead and do that to it. Otherwise, maybe it's not a knife that you want to buy. I don't know. It's totally up to you. You take your tastes and your desires and you get what you like. Of course, that's true with everything, isn't it? Everything in life is that way. So there you go. The weights for these. I didn't go across the weights for these. The dagger The weight is 156 grams, 5.5 ounces. This knife is 164 grams, which is 5.8 ounces, so just 3 ounces more than the other one. Okay, so I'm not going to do cutting tests with this because it doesn't... Oh, okay, I'll do one. Let's do some cutting tests. Here I've got this 1-inch wide banding. Here's the dagger, and I didn't quite lose my grip. I kept it and it cut through. And that's with a 2 inches behind the grind. 2 inches, 2 millimeters behind the grind. And this one here has got 1.5 millimeters behind the grind. Cut much easier. Very clear demonstration of the thickness behind the grind makes a difference. And let's try cutting just a slice. It can cut that, no problem. The dagger. Oh, I just about put my finger on here with some pressure. I did put my finger there, but no pressure. And oh, that didn't quite cut. Just have to push a little harder. There you go. And with the tip, let's see if I can get it to cut with the tip here. If I need to hold it there. There we go. So no problem cutting with the tip. And let's try this one. Cutting with the tip here. Yeah, that I just sort of came off a little bit. It works just fine. How well does it cut paper? I can get it to sort of cut paper with this one. That's 1.5 millimeters behind the grind. Well, let's try the dagger with 2 millimeters behind the grind. Push cut doesn't want to work, but a slicing cut can make some progress. That's when I'm sliding the paper across the edge instead of just through the edge. That's because it's got such a thick blade there. I could put these on my sharpening system and sharpen them up enough that they will actually be effective. What do I think these knives are for? These are not for general carry. These are somebody who's collecting some oddity kind of knife. That's what these are for. What could you use this knife for if you wanted a practical use for it? Well, this one would be a very good kindling batoning knife. I mean, you put that on a piece of wood, it's an inch, inch and a half, and whack on this end, you're going through it. It might be, it's heavy and it's hard. You'll feel all the vibrations in here. You probably want to wrap it up with some tennis racket handle wrap or something. And this guy, like I mentioned before, this guy might make a good thrower. I think they're kind of cool, but they are not general purpose use kind of knives. These are not users in any real practical sense. These are collector's knives. Something odd, something cool, something unique is the reason why you would buy these. If you want something for an everyday carry, these are not it. So there you go. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, and all that good stuff. And if you want to buy these knives, please use the links that I leave in the description below to Gear Best. Oh, I got to give you the prices, don't I? You want prices. The prices for these knives, all 3 different styles are the same. $31.14 US, $38.39 Canadian, 23.81 pounds, British pounds, and 25.96 euros. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. So I got some Gorilla Tape instead of some no-name branded duct tape. I got the actual Gorilla duct tape kind of stuff because it's much stronger. I took a 8-inch strip and, took a long strip and I tore it in thirds so it's narrower. And I wrapped it and I wrapped it and I wrapped it around there. And now, it's a little too tight actually. You know, if I find this too tight, I'm going to undo it. I'm going to redo it, not quite so tight. But we've got retention now. It shakes a little bit, but it's not coming out accidentally. You have to pull pretty hard to get it to come out now. And it actually slides along the thickest part of the blade back here. It rubs as I'm trying to put it in. So it is a little too tight right now. But once it's in place, it's nice and snug. So that's an alternative. But you probably have to replace this depending on how much you use it, maybe every couple months. Because even the Gorilla Tape is not going to last forever.